All right, welcome back, everyone. This is episode 2 for the Ask Me Anything session through Ellington Cyber Academy. Today, I have Paul Stout and Nick Gibson as our co-host today. Nigel will be coming on like probably in 5 minutes, and he's busy. And then for today, talking points we're going to be covering: why is it so hard to get a job in cybersecurity in 2026? This is probably one of the most common questions I get asked quite often or get yelled at for. So I want to kind of address it and hit it head on. We'll also be coming out with a newsletter as well next probably 2 to 3 weeks on these topics too. So if you're not subscribed, check out our site link. Should be either in the chat or it will be on my page that you can connect with us there. Other updates which I have towards the end of classes, not class, I keep saying that. Towards the end of the session will be updates for our brand new app we have for Splunk Security. That's just for our students and our members and my clients. So if you guys want access towards it as well, just let me know. I'll drop the links in the chat so you guys are able to check it out. Otherwise, we'll get started. And any questions at all, as always, is feel free to drop in the chat on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter. So I'll start off by asking from your guys' perspective. Just hit the question head on. Why is it so hard in your perspective, Paul? We'll go with you first to get hired in cybersecurity in 2026 from your experience.
That's not a simple question to answer. There's a lot of factors that are playing into this right now. One is there's a lot of uncertainty around spending right now. There's a lot of uncertainty about kind of how the future of particularly security work, tech work is going to look, particularly with AI. We've got a situation where AI technology is being used more and more in the hiring process. And there's also just a massive, massive disparity in the number of job requests that get posted out there and the number of applicants that apply for them. I think the last job that I posted on LinkedIn that I was hiring for, it was live for maybe 5 minutes and we got over 100 applicants. So I'm sure we'll dig deeper into that, but in a nutshell, there's a lot of factors right now that are just making it very, very difficult for the job seeker to actually connect with the hiring manager.
Oh, okay. And I guess is this common for all the type of jobs you actually post, Paul? What level was it specifically? Senior, mid-level, executive?
But it was actually a variable level that we posted. So we were going to level the job based upon the level of the candidates that applied. So we didn't really put a specific level on it. We just put a skill set requirement.
Okay. That's pretty crazy.
Before we move on, one more thing I forgot to mention
Yes.
is just the length of the hiring cycles. The last time that I applied for a company of any reasonable size, I think they wanted me to talk to 8 different people across 2 continents that ended up being almost a 4-month-long hiring process.
But your CTO, so that might be, I guess, a little more common given what you're
Well,
asked to do.
that's not what I was applying for when I applied to that company. I was applying just as a consultant. So, yes. Now, as an executive, yes, you would expect that, and I've certainly seen those hiring cycles going back, almost 10 years for executives. You've given a person a lot of responsibility. You want to make sure that they're going to fit in. But now we're talking about just kind of rank and file employees that are seeing extended and oftentimes many more interviewers than I think is actually necessary for the job in the hiring cycles.
Gotcha. Okay. That definitely is very interesting. And what about you, Nick, from your perspective?
From my perspective, COVID was probably the best and worst thing to happen to IT that we've had in the past 30 years. It was good in that we've got a lot of new technology from it. It really progressed a lot of certain way, things like AI, that sort of thing came out of COVID. But what it really came with is a big bubble for us specifically in the cybersecurity field, but in the IT field as a whole. There was a huge push during those online COVID era days where we needed, everywhere you could just walk into a room and find a job as a cybersecurity analyst because there was so many out there. Well, that has caught up to us now. We've now fulfilled all those roles, and we're coming to a point where it's a critical head where there can't be as many people in the field because there's not that many roles for those people to be in. So that's what we're kind of seeing right now. We're seeing companies pulling back a little bit on their security and IT staff, budgeting, economy, all that sort of things. There's just not as many roles. There's a need still out there, 100%. There's a need still out there, but the actual roles that are being fulfilled are not as plentiful as they used to be.
Okay. And then, Nick, what do you do for your, I guess, job specifically, so people know, have some background for you?
Yes, so I've been in cyber for about 10 years, actually going on 10 years next month. I currently run my own business as a digital forensic and incident responder for small businesses. I come from a background of working for the Department of Defense and Fortune 500 as a digital forensic investigator, security operations center analyst, and everything in between.
Very nice, very nice. Okay. So from what I'm hearing so far from our two hosts, is Paul, you're saying it is more along the lines of the hiring cycles being a little bit long, so people may not have the time to actually do it, given the requirements may not be realistic for what they're asking for. And then from Nick's side, you think there aren't as many jobs as there were during COVID. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's just a combination of all of this.
Definitely.
Okay.
We can even throw AI into it too, because they're, even though it's not taking any jobs, it's definitely making lower entry level jobs easier. Therefore, not as many people are needed to fulfill those jobs.
You've got a lot going on with AI, and I'm not going to get on my normal AI soapbox here. I'm just going to talk about the reality of what it is. And the reality is AI has been used in the hiring process since even the pre-COVID days. So what we're seeing is more advanced algorithms. And one thing I think I mentioned this on our last session, is that quite often your job recs are not posted by the person who's actually hiring for it. They're typically posted out of HR, and these are the people who are tuning the parameters in the AI systems. And quite often there can be misalignment between what the job needs versus what gets posted versus what the robots are ultimately looking for. But something else that is actually just very recently coming to prevalence on this is now you've got a bunch of AI deepfakes on the other side that are applying for jobs. So your AI screening algorithms are having to get better at detecting that. And now you're kind of pitting robot against robot, and the humans are kind of losing in that war, at least in terms of the deepfake. So there's a lot going on with that. But even before AI, just kind of a mismatch between screening keywords and screening processes and how resumes are written. So it's kind of dehumanizing a process that's fundamentally human, and that is working to provide for yourself, working to contribute to society.
I agree as well. From my perspective, I agree with all your points above. The market isn't as good as it was, or there aren't as many jobs as there were even, let's say, 5 years ago when COVID was happening, given the circumstances of how the world is now. Requirements have often gotten more stringent for what they're requiring for candidates. Then I also think from like a personal individual side, candidates don't have realistic expectations for what they need to do to actually land a role, from what I've seen from talking to people. I've often seen people start to complain or throw blame on others or the system that doesn't work. And I asked them, like, all right, cool. So what can you do about that now? The world's an unfair place. So how does saying that help you out though? Like, honestly, like, what do you want to happen? Right? Because you can keep on complaining, you can keep on whining, which is certainly your right. It just isn't going to help you get the things you want to get. So I'll try to bring it back towards that into personal responsibility for things you actually want out of life, and you have to sacrifice for it. Because if you don't, someone else will. That's just the reality of it. And if you don't want to do it, I'll do it and get the things that you want. Just kind of how it is. So I've seen a lot of that as well. I get a lot of I guess gripes or complaints. I'm like our partner videos in my videos saying I'm not being realistic. Saying I'm a gatekeeper or I'm not doing this or that. I'm like, it's cool to think that, but that doesn't help you out at all, right? Just keep in the same place tomorrow, next day, and the next day after that. So again, like, what do you actually want out of your life and out of your career? That's what I ask people. So this is my perspective about that. From what I've seen.
Yep, I'll echo that a bit. I think if I look back across the past 30 years of me working, I've gotten 2 of my jobs just based upon a job board and replying to a job advert. And those were usually uphill battles. Everything else that I've gotten are because of the connections that I've made while I've been at those jobs, the skills that I've been acquired, that I've acquired, excuse me, and the communities into which I've plugged myself into. So trying to be active out there. You know, my company is a pretty big Cribble and Splunk and CrowdStrike and multi-SIM consultancy firm. So I try to embed myself into those communities and actually be helpful in those communities, contribute back to those communities. And at least 2 of the roles that I've had over the past, I'd say 10 years has come from that. So you're right. We're talking about all of the elements of the system that are stacked against the job seeker. And let's not discount that. That is a real thing. So to your point, Kenneth, what are you going to do about it? And there are ways to understand the system and to work within it.
Yeah, and I still think if you're just like any other time in cybersecurity, if you're hungry enough, someone will find you and you'll eventually get that shot. You got to keep going.
Sometimes that may mean you need to learn a new skill, right? Sometimes that may mean that you need to put yourself out there. It's, you know, and people will call me ableist for this. People will call me all kind of things. I'm of the opinion if you want it badly enough, you'll find a way to make it happen.
It's kind of how humans have survived so long. So I don't know why people seem shocked by that statement. I'm just proud of it. That's how we got here. Some ancestors got here and survived. So from that lens perspective, I was going to say. So I did a video with Dakota Snow. We're trying to build a partnership with him. He's the IT bearded dad as well. He has his own podcast and media company. He lives like in, I think, Portland, I believe. So with that, we did a video about some of the same similar concepts like this, about what you need to do to get inside cybersecurity, or what you need to do to actually level yourself up. And there's a lot of comments saying how people hate networking because it feels very cringy and it feels fake. And someone also posted they're glad they're not in cybersecurity because it's too hard. And again, my question to the first thing would be people to realize, like, every single high paying field you have to network and build relationships. That's every single high paying field. That's most fields, honestly. If you're a plumber in town, you have to build relationships with the apartment complexes or businesses, right, for local government to get better deals. If you want to be the best restaurant in town, you have to go to City Hall and actually market yourself and get in another apartment complex and deals. Same thing for cybersecurity. Do you want to get a job, or you want to build a business, level up, become an executive? You have to connect with people, talk with them, build relationships with that. There's no difference towards any of the fields. It's the same concepts, right? Human beings, we're naturally very social creatures, right? So the better you're able to communicate and tell stories and to storytelling to solve problems, the more likely you are to land jobs and get better money, better opportunities for you yourself, your network, and your family. It's always been like that. This is not new. It's always been like that. It's much more prevalent given how much more connected we are as a society and a species. So again, I myself, I'm a very introverted person. I don't want to talk to anyone, honestly. Like, I'd rather, like Paul, like, staying home for the past 4 days has been wonderful. No, like no going out to talk to people, not having to do small talk or anything like that has been like absolutely wonderful. But I understand that I have to do that. I have to talk to people. I have to reach out to people to get the things that I want to get out of my business, right? Because the goal is to get 100 members by this March. So I have to talk to people. That's part of my job. Yeah. All right. So again, going back to what you and Nick said, Paul, like, what do you want to do to sacrifice to get towards your goals, right? That's a part of the game for what this is.
You talk about that networking and not being extroverted. I shared this on Jordan's podcast, on the Stats podcast, that I damn near talked myself out of going to both SplunkConf and CribbleCon just because I didn't want to see people. And these are people I like. It's just I can only take people in person in small doses. So it's just kind of getting in that mindset and getting over that and going there with a goal in mind. And that is to have a message, to learn something, to meet people, to build your network, knowing that you kind of have to do this regardless of whether or not it's in your comfort zone. I'm taking another trip here in 2 weeks, and I'm pretty sure that at the end of next week, I'm going to find some way Friday morning to tell myself I'm not going to go, no way, and then by Friday afternoon, I'll have gotten over it again, because that's just kind of the cycles I run on.
Yeah, like I told my wife before that I got into IT originally to not talk to people. I wanted to be the guy with the hoodie on in a dark room that just types on a computer and goes home for the day. And that is the exact opposite of what I do now. And that's just all of IT. It doesn't matter. IT is part of the boardroom, so we have to be part of the business conversation. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. I always mess that up with
Yes.
my child. It's okay though. Like I was saying, for anybody like watching this, that is a part of the game, right? If you want to get like ahead in this field, you have to be able to talk to people and build relationships. That's just a prerequisite. Um, every job or contract I've gotten has been through that. It's either like I market myself on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter, and people reach out towards me, or it's like previous connections and relationships that I have that will help me land different types of opportunities. I I've only applied like randomly once towards a job and actually got it, and that was my first one out of college. Every other job I got has been through connections or marketing. That's just how it is. Um, we do have questions at the chat. Joseph puts, so given how much skills are needed to be hired for an entry level position, where is the line drawn between HR clout and the minimum realistic pre-requirements? Paul, you can go first in this one.
That's a hard one because it's actually changing. I'm sure we've all seen the memes about entry levels needing 5 to 7 years experience, and there's of course some truth to that because that's what people will post out there. I've shared this a number of times that in my experience, when a job rec gets posted, is that they're really only looking for, I should say, critical path is only about 65% of those requirements. Realistically, someone entry level is not going to have 5 to 7 years experience. Now, I would say that as you're learning this, as you're going through, I don't know if you decide to go to college or if you decide to go to a boot camp or if you decide to learn it on your own, start building some experience even if someone isn't paying you to do it. Build an online portfolio so that you can speak to how, okay, so despite the lack of experience that I have toward this position, here's the body of work that I've created. Here's what I can contribute to it. Now, I mentioned that roughly 65% will get you through the door on that. The key is knowing which 65% to go after. So, look at the job title, kind of try to fish out the spirit and intent of the job. I'm going to come at this through, say, a Cribble or a Splunk engineer job. Clearly knowing Cribble and Splunk are going to be your top two. Those will likely be deal breakers. If you need to know some obscure dialect of JavaScript, if it's listed on there, yeah, you can probably get the job without that one. So the key is just kind of really knowing that, tailoring your resume to those keywords. And this is where things like the AI filters and the HR filters start coming in. And I know it gets tedious, but kind of building a resume tailored toward each job, even if you're only changing 5 to 10% of it, find something about that company that you can connect to and speak to it. So a really roundabout way of answering that, but reality is it really depends on the job.
And Nick?
Yeah, and I do want to point out that one thing that I really liked about what was just said was that you need to have a hands-on experience, hands-on real-world experience. That does not mean that you have to have job experience. Job experience and real-world experience in cybersecurity are two different things. You can I've trained a lot on certain systems on SCADA systems and large industrial control systems that I've never actually worked on in real life, but I've studied them in the lab and I know how to secure them. That's what's really important here in cybersecurity is your hands-on ability. I when I go into interview people, I know within the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes of talking with them if they actually know what they're talking about or not. Because when you're in cybersecurity and you know what you're talking about, it just becomes you. You just are that. And it just has an aura about you. So that's what you need to be. You need to be technically proficient with your skills.
A great call out that experience does not have to be for a company. A lot of the experience, if you go and look at some of the projects that are on my LinkedIn, some of them are for a company, but some of them I've done on my own. Now, I've done it under my own brand, but it's still things that no one else is paying me to do.
Yeah. So Joseph, I would say for you specifically, a couple of things we all talk about this on the pod. Basically, is like where are you currently located at? like what type of jobs are in your area. Again, if you live in a non-large metro area where there aren't a lot of technology jobs or cybersecurity jobs, you may have to move. It's just the reality of it. If you want to move, that helps out a lot. I'd also, at least, I tell all my students this as well, try to go towards at least like one in-person event per month. Because one thing to talk to someone online, one thing to talk with them in person. That's how you like deepen those relationships. Which is often why I go to probably 6 conferences per year, and like another probably 20 speaking events per year as well. That really helps out in building and developing those relationships. Because honestly, like once you're past like the screening part, if you can like backdoor your way in, you're like halfway there. Because like most people get stuck at like the door. That's honestly the hardest part. Like once you're actually inside of like per the company, right? Like once you're inside of like the second round and third round of interviews, like that's your time to actually shine the show off your skills. Because like the senior engineers, like I don't care what your resume is. I care if you can help me do the job and then make my life easier. Like at that point. And if you can, then we'll hire you. All right, it's just reality of it. So the better you're able to actually connect with people on those levels for hiring managers, lead engineers, recruiters, more likely you are to actually get a job. Is what I would tell you. So keep that in mind.
And I just wanted to add one more thing is that the technology that the technology stack that today is not a limiting factor for you in a job per se. Sometimes it is. Sometimes if they need a Splunk engineer and you don't know Splunk, that's a little different. But if they are saying that you need to be a security analyst and need to have had a SIM experience, any SIM will do. Any security tool will do. They're looking for you to have hands-on experience, not specifically the tool that's needed. I can train you on the tool. You just need the experience behind it.
And I'm going to tell you right now, not always, if they have a role for a Splunk job, do you actually have to have Splunk experience. So if you've got experience in something similar, if you understand data structures, particularly in consulting, because a lot of times consulting will, in my experiences, we kind of hire for two purposes. One is we want someone experienced that we can send into an account and know that they're going to be solid, know that they're going to move that account forward. And we're also looking for ways to build people up. And I've personally hired for roles where the person came in and they did not know Cribble, they did not know Splunk coming in, but they kind of had a foundational understanding of what it was, and they were willing to get trained, and then we put them on an aggressive training plan. It's like, you hit the certification by this date or we're going to shake hands and bye. And the ones that have worked out, well, they busted their ass and made that happen.
Yeah, I mean the step one is getting the job. Then the real work begins of actually learning the job. Every job that you go to, I don't care if you've been in this field for 30 years, I could put you in front of one of my clients and you'll have nothing, you'll have not know how to do anything, because you don't know the environment, you don't know the rules, you don't know the lay of the land. And that comes with time and OJT, on the job training.
I agree. We have more comments. This is from LinkedIn user. I've seen so many jobs on LinkedIn that have 100 or 200 applicants in a matter of hours. Makes me wonder how many are actually well-qualified individuals with related skill requirements versus any sort of AI or people throwing their resume, anything and everything. I would LinkedIn user, actually, I have it on Shane Layton. I don't know what it is on populate for StreamYard here. So Shane, we used to do staffing. Oh, Marquisha still does it, but we used to do staffing for some of my clients like earlier last year. And I would say half of the applicants we got, directly half of them did not read the JD at all. Like just straight trash. Another like maybe 20, 30% didn't have the skill set that we were looking for. So whenever you guys see like 1,000 applications on like a job rec, I would say maybe like 200 of them are actually any decent, another like maybe 150 can actually do the job, realistically speaking. And then from there, that's just like the internal applications. They're gonna pull from the internal pool first or the referral first. It's just the reality of it. Which is why I say network and build relationships. It's super key. Okay, for someone like Paul, if I told Paul, like, hey, Paul's hiring for a couple consultant, and I have someone from the Cyber Range or something that I worked with in the past, I'm like, hey, Paul, this person can do the job. Like, trust me. He now in the mindset of this person has to prove me wrong as to why they can't do the job instead of proving him proving him right to do the job, right? So it's very, very likely that person, if they have the skill set, is going to probably get a hire. It's the reality of it, right?
They will get a conversation.
Yeah.
I tend to be a little bit stricter than some hiring managers in terms of technical skills, so everyone has to prove themselves to me.
Yeah.
But they will absolutely get a conversation.
Yeah. So it's just much more likely compared to some like random person off the street that you're trying to bring on, who you don't have any context or background information on. But again, we are humans. Humans are social creatures, right? So we want to like know and like and trust someone before we actually bring them onside of the team. So I'll keep that in the forefront of your mind. Is what I would tell you.
I want to add something to that LinkedIn job application, if you don't mind. And that's, I've worked or I've posted LinkedIn jobs before. A lot of that's really going to depend on how well versed the person posting the job is at LinkedIn jobs, because there are settings that you can put in there where you can automatically reject. If you require citizenship, and you can automatically reject anyone who maybe doesn't hold a visa or is applying for a visa or things like that. You can set certain keywords in that. And if they don't have, LinkedIn is actually a little bit better, because then you can go into the skills that you have configured in your profile and certain certifications, and you can set automatic rejection criteria on that. Now, all of those people are still going to show in the total that have applied to that job. But depending on how the person who actually posted that on LinkedIn has configured it, I would say don't lose heart just because you see a huge number of applicants, because a well-crafted job in there, I know the ones that I posted, I still got my eyes on a ton of qualified candidates for them.
And not to dismiss the bots that are out there, but there are bots out there. They do exist. I just don't think they're as prevalent as people might think they are. There are probably a couple hundred applicants to this job, but like y'all said, only 25% of them will have any sort of relative experience that fits the role.
I agree. Another question from Daniel. Should those who are looking to get into cyber learn AI? If so, what type of AI?
All kinds of AI. You should learn the different types of AI. First off, but you should be learning every single part of AI that is imaginable. It is going to be the wave of the future. It already is, but it's going to be even more so. And I'm not saying, oh yeah, we need to be on this like AI train, but that's where the way we're going. Where everything is tracking towards this AI first model, and you need to be aware of that. We already have proof of concepts of attacks like hacks being done where they're backed by AI, meaning that they can use AI to get around the attackers. Well, that means that or around the defenders. That means the defenders now need to use AI to get around that. So we're going to be using AI as a weapon and a defensive tool.
But adding on to that, please don't let that AI substitute for a foundational knowledge of just security in the first place. So know what a brute force attack looks like. Know what a distributed denial of service attack looks like. Know what land speed violations look like. Know what data exfiltration looks like. Because if you can know all the AI in the world, and if you don't know how to prompt that AI, if you don't know how to direct it onto what to look for, well, you're not going to get very far.
Yes, AI prompting is probably the most unsung skill that's out there right now, and no one's really a lot of people aren't talking about it. If you can write a proper prompt and get really good authenticated answers, you are well above any of your peers that are also using the same tool.
Would you say, from like an AI governance perspective, people should try to focus on that too, for how the data is actually stored and manipulated from the back-end perspective?
Well, yeah, 100%. I get these confused all the time. I don't know if it's Samsung or Sony, but it was one of those two. They just had a major breach where they had lost $2 billion worth of market share because they got end run to the product. They got end run to market with a product. Well, come to find out that people were using ChatGPT to get answers, and then the other company just queried ChatGPT like, hey, what's Sony up to? And it just printed it out. So they lost $2 billion in market share because they didn't have proper AI governance and policy to how their users are supposed to be operating AI.
Cause you're supposed to be able to like get I guess not proprietary, but a more private model. That's for just for your org. So it's on a separate like backend server, and it's separated away from everything else, at least to help out with that. But I guess they didn't do that.
There are trade-offs in
No.
that. Yeah. And to that point about AI governance out there, it's a running joke. If you need an API key for anything in the world, just ask ChatGPT; it'll give you one. So yeah, it's absolutely about the data you put in there. One thing that, at least as I understand it, and I could be wrong about this, a downside of running your own private model is that you're kind of limited in the training data. You're limited in the kind of responses it can get, and I guess the depth and the breadth of those responses that it can give. So it's always trade-offs. In our client portal, we're looking to release some AI features, and we thought it'd be some really cool things to suggest next steps from a ticket, or to be able to summarize tickets, or to be able to just kind of give a holistic snapshot of the account from it. And talking about that conceptually, our clients were like, "Yeah, we would love those features." I'm like, "Cool. So would you let us send your ticket data back to Claude or OpenAI to process that?" They're like, "Hell no." So it's definitely a trade-off in terms of what companies are willing to put out there and what companies are willing to risk versus the reward that they're willing to receive from AI for now.
Yeah, I think that'll be an interesting sort of new market in the field. AI security tools. I'm sure there's probably someone already making some sort of play on how to secure AI within a company. So I'm sure that's out there.
Have you guys seen, I guess, from your client base, firms actually build on their own data centers to utilize AI, or is it just through third parties mostly?
No, that's a whole nother thing we could talk that we could talk an hour about is data center usage with AI in today's world, because they are running out of grid space for these AI data centers globally. I mean, Microsoft is paying billions of dollars to restart 3 Mile Island just for their AI
Really?
because there literally is no other place for them to go, and they won't. No one else will take them. Like.
Well, and that's also a running challenge of that is you're starting to see a lot of pushback from local communities on it because as this infrastructure gets built out, sure, Microsoft can reactivate 3 Mile Island, but you still have to transmit that power. You still have to bolster the grid to be able to affect that. And that's really starting to affect everyone out there. So, Kenneth, to directly answer your question, I'm not seeing a lot of companies running their own data centers because literally only the Microsofts and Anthropics and OpenAIs can actually afford to do that at this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what they're spending hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars to build this infrastructure without making any profit off of it. I think revenue for OpenAI was only like, I think, no, not rev. Yeah, I think revenue profit was only like 20 or 40 billion. They spent like $800 billion.
Yep, you're not wrong. We're talking orders of magnitude disparity there. But they're also getting investments from the people, and this, I could go for an hour on this subject too. They're also getting investments from the companies that they're buying from. So NVIDIA is investing in OpenAI, which in turn uses the money to buy the chips. And so right now there's a lot of really free-flowing investment money into this that is bridging that gap between revenue and profit. And that's why, in my opinion, a lot of people are perceiving this is going to be a bubble that bursts. And if it does, if we can't stabilize that disparity, if you're looking at $1 trillion deficit between revenue and profit, I'm not trying to be a doomsday sayer. I'm trying to say a bubble of that magnitude, if that's actually what this is, could have catastrophic impact.
I also heard numbers like 1 in 50 new AI companies are just complete like BS kind of companies. They're ChatGPT wrappers. You know what I mean? Like they don't actually have and hold the data that they're using. They just parlay it from other people. And that's not really an effective business strategy on the majority of tools out there. So we're gonna see, I think we're gonna see a big bubble burst where all these AI companies have just like the 90s and the .com burst is just gonna go one day and then they're gonna be gone.
I was about to say, you're talking about the BS companies like that. We saw a ton of that, a ton of Me Too players back in the .com days as well. And that bubble burst, and you had, 70% of your commercial real estate in Silicon Valley was just vacant. But people did emerge from it. Yahoo's still here. Google's still here. all of these companies are still here. So even talking about a bubble, and I'm not saying for sure it is or isn't, I'm not an economist, even if a bubble bursts, that's not to say that the AI space is going to be eradicated. It's going to say there's going to be a realignment to it.
Oh no, PayPal came from the dot-com burst. I mean, that's how they all got together because they got laid off and left their other companies. And I think that we saw that with COVID too, with when people started to get like shifting in jobs and laid off, they merged and all these new sort of awesome projects started to come out of it. And I think you're going to see that too, where the best of the best AI products are going to be out there, and then there's going to be a lot of supporting products for those things.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this is gonna wind up ending. Um, but that's enough of that rabbit hole. That which was my bad. So we're past the 30-minute mark. So I'll open the floor to any questions you guys may have for me or the team. About anything. Specifically, let's talk about this topic, right? Again, why is it so hard to get the job in cybersecurity in 2026? So drop any questions you may have about that. Issues you've been having talking to hiring managers, issues you've been having getting rejected for interviews, or why or what people look for instead of interviews, specifically from a hiring manager perspective. Now's the time to ask your questions on that front as well. We're here to help.
Or maybe if you don't have a specific question, just kind of a synopsis of your experience so far in the job market.
Yeah. So I guess since I'm probably the junior person here, even though I'm not technically junior. Paul's been doing it since I've been, I think, born. And Nick's been doing it since I've probably been like in middle school. So from my perspective, it's been interesting, right? Because I am trying to pivot more into technical sales. So like solutions engineers, cybersecurity solutions engineer, solutions architect type of work. So it's been an interesting experience. I interviewed with Elastic. This was during Christmas. No, Thanksgiving. Yeah, Thanksgiving time technically. I prepped 40 hours for all 3 interviews. I couldn't get the job because I technically didn't have enough hands-on Elastic experience. And I built out an entire document environment and documented the entire process for it. No, which is fair. That was literally the only thing they said. They said everything else I did was absolutely perfect. That was just the only thing they were looking for, because this was Elastic for Elastic, right? So that does make sense. So I thought that was interesting. I've been getting other contract deals as well, trying to get those signed. It's been a lot of fun. I'd probably say, because I'm wanting to do something that's a little bit more technical sales, the job market for that, it's always pretty decent because someone always has to sell a product, right? That's just kind of the reality of it. Because if you don't sell a product, you don't have any revenue. Sales positions normally are pretty robust no matter what the market kind of looks like for the most part, because people will always buy something. That's just kind of reality of it. So it's been interesting to see from that standpoint. I don't really have trouble getting interviews, honestly. That's never been my big issue, because I market myself and I have a really good connection. People always want to talk to me, at least get a first interview or second interview. So I would say for me, it's been easier compared to other people that I've been talking to. But I also know everyone doesn't put in as much work as me as well. I'm just being very objective about it. I work 16 to 18-hour days some days, just literally try and market and sell this. And people don't want to do that or can't do that, which I understand. So it gives me a leg up compared to other people, which I use that towards my advantage, because I am young. I'm in really good shape. I can work 70 hours a week and I won't get a heart attack and die. Compared towards if I was 80 years old, I would not do that. I would probably die. So I am utilizing my in shape time, my youngness towards my advantage. That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So if anyone has any questions about that at all, but what I'm doing, I'm more than happy to answer any questions about that. It's a lot of work, but it's fun though.
Key in this is just your mental state as well. And I'm just trying to fill until we get a question on it. But kind of following on what you said, I think I've said this on every podcast, and I'll keep saying it until it sticks or it helps someone. One of my favorite quotes out there is attributed to Henry Ford. It's, if you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And sharing that because with the state of the job market, real versus perceived right now, it is super, super easy to get down on the process, to get down on yourself, to start thinking, I can't do this, to start thinking there's no way, everything is stacked against me on this. And the moment you succumb to that kind of thinking, well, unfortunately, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy on that. So I like to think of treating a job hunt like it is my job. And if I'm in a space where I need a job, and I've had a couple of those over the past 15 years, then what I will do is I will put in a 40 plus hour effort in that week of trying to find jobs and then unplug from it. Find some time. I mean, take your own PTO, take your holidays during it if you have to. It can be scary not having a job, and particularly if you have responsibilities, if you starting to amass wealth on that. But Kenneth, to your point about being young and in shape and able to work those 60, 70, 80 hours a week, I've still got a few of those in me. I'm not quite, haven't quite been doing this since you were born, but I'm also no spring chicken anymore too. So I can't burn 3 months of 80 hours a week straight anymore. It's just about knowing your limits, listening to yourself, listening to those signs of burnout, being able to work with it. But then when you are able to engage it, to treat it like a mission, treat it like a job, and engage it as such.
My apologies, Paul. I didn't mean to age you like that.
I'm not going to let you live that one down, so we're good.
But yeah, that's just how I've always viewed it. I come from Jamaican immigrants. I've seen where my parents grew up and how much they sacrificed to get towards this point. So my thing is, I always don't want to have any excuses because they grew up in a way worse time than me. I have it easy no matter how hard I have it. That's just always been my mindset, and that's where my work ethic comes from, honestly. So I just always try to keep that in perspective from where my ancestors came. I came from slaves in the sugarcane fields, and what they had to go through, I would never have to imagine. I don't ever want to imagine that, right? So no matter how hard my heart is, it will be their best day. They would pray to God to get. So I just treat it like that. If anyone wonders why I work so hard. There are a lot of days where I question why the hell am I up like at 3 a.m. in the morning doing all this stuff, sending LinkedIn messages, trying to talk to people, getting rejected. Just part of it.
But 90% of the people are out there not doing that, and that's what's going to get you be successful in really any field, but specifically this field. If you want to stand out, be the person that you are counted on to be in the room and have the answer, or to find the answer, or to know something. That's how you become valuable to your employer, to your team. And when you're valuable, you're sticky.
We've got another question that popped up in the chat there.
Oh, I was unmuted again like an old man. That's fine. Oh, it's messed that up. I'll get it down one day. All right. LinkedIn user doesn't say. I don't know why they keep the.
It's your privacy settings on LinkedIn. Sometimes you can set them where it doesn't share with the external. So this is. I happen to know Shane, and I know that he's very big on privacy. So this doesn't surprise me. He's showing up in chat here as LinkedIn user.
Okay. Is there any common indicators of on someone's LinkedIn profile resume that would make you say nope and move on, even if they have technical skills? I would say for me personally, if you're under like 500 connections, you have no profile picture, and you haven't posted like in a year, I probably won't connect with you, honestly. If you look up, you look fake and look like a bot, would be my biggest thing. So try to look for like a profile picture, like how you posted in the past like couple months at least. Is your work experience actually shown at all? Do you try to pitch slap me the minute we talk? So stuff like that.
We mentioned earlier on this call that the longer you're in this industry, the easier it is for you to spell bullshit. And I just kind of take a cursory glance at it. the positions that this person claimed to have line up with the timeline that I would have expected on that. Now, I also give a little bit because I realize there's people out there smarter than me, and there are people out there that sometimes it takes a little bit longer to catch on to things than others. So, it's not an exact science on it. When you've looked at enough resume profiles, it gets easier to sift through that. And Kenneth, you hit the nail on the head. I kind of made a joke about privacy on there. It is a balance between privacy and how much you want to put out there. And I know a lot of people who will hide their profile pictures from people to whom they're not connected. You know, I actually know a guy who runs a social media campaign strategy, online marketing presence for a really, really prominent player in this sim space. And unless you know my guy's name, you're not finding him on LinkedIn. You can't connect with him. He doesn't have a profile picture. So there are those rare exceptions where people are just like ultra, ultra locked down. And I guarantee you someone on this call knows exactly who I'm talking about. Don't say it. But especially when you're presenting yourself to people you don't know, I agree with Kenneth. I think that having some semblance of a presence on LinkedIn, especially if you're going to be applying through jobs for LinkedIn or sharing that with prospective employers, goes a really long way.
And this isn't necessarily a LinkedIn thing, but it's a pet peeve of mine. Please don't use like some crazy weird email address when you're trying to apply for jobs. Like you shouldn't be ladiesman65 like at gmail.com. It should be a nice professional email that you would want to give to your grandparents.
That sounds like a personal story there, Nick.
I see it all the time. It especially gets me with business owners that do that. They use, instead of the getting a business name, they use Gmail. But I do see it all the time where they have these weird. It's very unprofessional, and it shows the type of it gives a first impression that you may not like.
That makes sense.
You got to keep in mind, too, the workspace has come a really, really long way in the past 20, 30 years. I now see memes all over Slack, sometimes to the point where I wish I could get rid of them. Sometimes I start to think that LinkedIn is becoming a little bit too playful, but now I'm showing my age a little bit on this. You have to remember, you never know who your resume is going in front of. Your resume could go in front of the most old school, been at this 50 years and
Yep.
solid in what they do, and it's really just about balancing that and presenting it. Those who have stalked me on LinkedIn know that I am certainly not rigid on there. I've got some weird shit in my profile, and that's okay. And I realize the rooms that rules me out of. If I were to get into a spot where I just needed a job, I guarantee you I would give a glow up on my LinkedIn.
I think it kind of goes along with the old adage of dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Like your LinkedIn should be for the job that you want, not the job that you have.
Agree. Let me see. Joseph. So I just wrapped up an associate's in cybersec while working as an IT support tech for Perry Junior College in East Texas. I'm looking to get into the cybersecurity field in blue team or cloud security for the current moment. I'm focused on solidifying my networking knowledge by taking Networking Plus. What kind of skills would hiring managers be looking for someone like me? Paul?
Seeing as how I'm cyber adjacent, why don't we punt that one and I'll come back to it?
Okay. Then Nick?
Yeah. When you're looking at getting into blue teaming and skills like that, the biggest skill that you could have, but it's also the hardest to demonstrate, is analytical thinking. Again, we go back to the technical aspect. I can teach you technology all day long, but if you don't think analytically, I can't really help you. Like I need you to be able to think analytically out of the gate. So, understanding how you don't have to understand how everything works, but understanding how to find answers, understanding where to go to get information, understanding how to use that information, all that comes into play. And I think that's a really big soft skill that is not as stated as it should be.
And thanks, Nick. That gave me time to actually come up with an answer for that myself. I'll go back to something I mentioned earlier on this pod, and that is to have just kind of a general. Before I framed it as a general understanding of security, in this context, I'm going to frame it as a general understanding of technology. So you mentioned learning networking, and that is certainly one aspect of cybersecurity and one aspect of blue teaming. Understanding application security, understanding OS security, understanding how common exploits work, memory buffer overflows, things like that. What does that do? Well, it runs the kernel out of memory such that you end up dropping to a potentially privileged shell. Really just understanding how this stuff works. It's one thing to, I guess, jump into cybersecurity and know how to use the tools. Back in the 90s, we had a term for these. We called them script kiddies. So people who could hack with tools but had literally no idea how underlying security worked on that. So at the entry level stage, I would say just have a broad understanding of security concepts and of just generally how technology works. And then as you progress in your cyber career, then you're going to start to understand what you like, what comes more naturally to you, where you want to focus, and you'll be able to specialize those skills.
I would say, if you're looking for a job at your level, Joseph, look at the JDs, what you're trying to apply for. Like Paul was saying, you should at least qualify for like 60 to 70% of what's on the job application, then go from there. So I would say try to land like an adjacent role. So either technical support, help desk, cloud support, right? Maybe something like business development within like a cybersecurity company, so like CrowdStrike or SentinelOne. So you were within that type of environment. Because you're close. So you're close towards Dallas. It's probably the largest major city next towards you, which you're close to me. I don't know. I don't think about East Texas. I've only been here for 5 years, so I don't know what that means. Sorry. But I think you're like probably 2 hours away from me. So I would definitely say if you're able to move to Dallas and like move to DFW, because every major company has an office here. We have the second most finance and insurance jobs in the country outside of New York City. So almost every major finance company, tech company has an office here.
It's all the oil out there, man. You got to be able to finance it.
Yeah, there's opportunities out here for sure. So that's definitely one of the things I'll tell you. I'd also say check out the Cyber Range as well, because Paul's inside of it, the other Paul's inside of it, Nigel's inside of it as well. We've been bringing in a lot more instructors too to help out with it, so it's a really good place to try to develop the type of skills and then kind of go from there. It's a big thing I would tell you. And as you go on your journey, right? Always check out the free stuff first, and then like once you hit the wall with that, then start to pay for resources. As you make more money, you'll want to try to connect with more people and have more opportunities from that sense. So always invest in yourself is the biggest thing. I get a lot of people that make more money than I do, and they complain about the price of some of the things I offer. I'm like, what are you talking about? You make $300K a year. I'm like, this thing $50. I'm like, what do you mean you can't afford this? I'm not getting it. Please explain towards me another way. Right, but people pay for things they want to pay for. I learned it the hard way. That's just how life is. So
I paid for my Splunk Core Consultant Bootcamp on my own dime at full price because the company I worked for at the time said that they didn't want to pay for it for me.
Yeah,
and that was not a small expense.
I dropped like $8K on my GCFA certification from SANS because no one else was going to pay for it.
And now, at entry level, we're certainly not saying drop 8K on training, but we are saying you got to spend money to make money.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think our membership is only, I think, $80 a month, so which isn't that much money, honestly. That's probably, you cut out Starbucks like twice a week. Honestly, you can't afford it.
Yeah, 8K is not something you should be spending when it's your first year. This is like I was like 4 or 5 years into my career. I was wanting to be advanced and grow into another advanced leadership role, and there's a lot of great certifications that are free out there, like the lower end, the Splunk user training. That's a really good training. I like that initial Splunk training that you get. It's a free little user course that you could do, right? And then there's stuff from Amazon, there's stuff from Microsoft, there's stuff from Google, all these sort of free things that you could just have certifications for, and you don't have to pay a dime.
Actually, all of the Cribble training, even up to their services consultant, is free. Now, you can't get into that last tier unless you work for a Cribble partner, but you can get right up into that gate. All of it's free and very well. And I have no incentive to work for this. They're not paying or to promote this. They're not paying me for this at all. I just really, really like the way they've got their training set up such that you get that hands-on experience. You're not just learning theory on it. So there is a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, Cribble training is actually really good. I was very impressed by it. Any other questions at all for me or my co-host? Again, guys, do not be shy. Don't get questions after this ends immediately. So we're here now. Please feel free to ask me anything or ask Paul or Nick anything from that end. I'm gonna harp on it again. I keep getting pushback on this. Please, y'all, if you're in your honestly, if you're in your 20s and you don't have any responsibilities and you live in like a small town, please move, man. Or lady. Please just move. If you live like in like the swamps of Florida, like move to like Tampa or like Miami or somewhere, please. There'll be more jobs there, more opportunities there, more people for you to actually build relationships with, which is what you really want to do, especially at that age. Makes your life a lot easier. And it'll force you to have to grow in different ways. It's just reality of it.
Miami is crazy. There's a conference there like every other week, giant tech conference that's happening in Miami all the time.
Now, you mentioned Dallas. Out here in Denver, we have something going on pretty much all the time. San Francisco, San Jose, really, really big for tech. There's a lot of Seattle, another really great place. So if you look at just a map of the U.S., you can just draw dots and you pretty much have all of your major regions covered on that. But, Kenneth, you're right. If you stay in the middle of nowhere, especially if you're at entry level right now and you really need to make those connections, and you're going to have an uphill battle if you're entry level right now and you're looking for a cushy work from home job and where you never have to go out and talk to anyone. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying you've got a hell of a fight. So go where the jobs are. It's a numbers game. It's like sales. It's a numbers game, especially at that level.
I was just going to say the same thing, that I think a lot of people get hung up on, in IT we can work from home. Yeah, you can.
Eventually.
But it's taken me 10 years to work from home. You know what I mean? Like it's like buying a new car. You don't get to buy a new car when you're 18. That's not how it works. You got to save up money and put in the time to get that new car. And that's the same thing with cyber. If you want a work from home job, but I had a teacher one time. He worked for Symantec, and they paid for him to have a server put into his house and had it all lined up. And he would go fly out and go to places, and they would pay for all of that too. And I'm like, that's the job I want. That would be super cool. But it took him 30 years to get there. Right.
Man, my first car at 18 cost me $500 if the engine fell out of it after about 3 months. You got to build up to it.
Yeah, I got lucky because I started around COVID, so I was forced into remote work. That's the only reason why. But even so, like someone says, Kenneth, I'll give you $250,000. I'll work in the office 5 days a week. I'll do that in a heartbeat, honestly. In a heartbeat. JP Morgan gave me a job for $250,000. I'll drive to Plano and that got awful traffic. I'll sit in the office. All right. So I know a lot of people that say no. I'm like, my parents are not rich. I can't afford that. I cannot. So
I was on site with a client just a week ago.
Yeah. It's not that bad.
Yeah, cybersecurity is going back to on-site stuff. Clients are expecting on-site. Prior to COVID, on-site was like a dream in IT. Like everyone was working. That was like only the highest paid people were work from home people. SOC analysts, everyone was on-site, was in office.
Yeah, that's. But I won't judge people on their poor life decisions. So I've made that awful amount of ones myself. Thanks, gentlemen, for the podcast. Nick's mentioned positioning oneself as a go-to guy. What the main areas could pass for this in the market industry today?
It's what you're passionate about. That's what people are going to want. Don't force yourself into liking something you don't like. I don't like doing like DNS level networking. I don't like doing it. It doesn't make sense to me. It is just beyond my skill set for some reason. I can't get it. So I don't do DNS like large scale, like, ISP to ISP DNS stuff. I don't do that because it's not what I do. I'm not an expert in that. Find something that you like and enjoy that you want to be an expert in, and be an expert in that. That's easy. That's as simple as it can get in cyber.
Paul, I know for Nick, but
Yeah, that's going to differ also company to company and depending on what your roles are. See, I've mentioned a few times that I'm cyber adjacent in this, and I got my start in development. I got my start in software engineering, and I thought this Splunk thing was cool, so I moved in there. And somewhere along my career, I realized that, hey, if I could wrap some type of packaging around this, if I knew something about branding, then it would make me invaluable. And now I'm running products at this point. But it's because I saw opportunities, things that I connected with, things that I liked. I did look a little bit at detection engineering, cyber engineering, and I realized, I like building things better than locking them down. So do what I like, do what I'm good at, and then let other people do what they like and what they're good at.
I know plenty of I know probably 5 different business owners right now that are running an IT business based on solely from a technology that people used to use, and that they are now the only one that knows how to use that technology. You could be
it'll come back around. Yeah. Fortran, COBOL programmers today,
Yeah.
you're talking $500,000 a year salary on that, but those are 70-year-old, 60-year-old skills.
Microsoft Access is people are paying out the behind for people to do Microsoft Access in the manufacturing space.
I heard that since like college.
You would be surprised how well I lived it back when it was still a thing. My first job was taking a Microsoft Access database for the U.S. Air Force and converting it over to a Microsoft SQL Server, at least on the back end, so that it could be used across the entire flight without it getting locked out. Well, no one's heard of Access within the past 15, 20 years, but a lot, particularly finance and government, tend to have critical applications running on this, and they got one guy that knows it, and that guy is reaching retirement age, and once they get out the door, they're either paying him a crap ton of money to maintain it, or they're paying you a crap ton of money to maintain it. Who do you want it to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, find those old gray hats and learn what they know. Just like be a mentor for them. Learn where their skills, because they probably have one job that they're good at, and they've been good at it for 30 years. And once they're gone, there's not going to be a replacement.
Then buy them lunch and say, "Please help me."
Yeah. I'm on a client right now where they're in that situation with Access, and unfortunately, because I work for a company that's doing services for them, I can't help them with the other thing because it's a conflict of interest. But God, it's an Access gig, and they're exactly that. They've got one person, the guy who's maintained it for literally 20 years, who's approaching retirement age. So this isn't just theoretical. I'm literally working with a client right now doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I have buddies that worked for NASA that got recalled back into. He was a government contractor, and he got recalled back from another government contract to go back to NASA because he was the only one that wrote that code, and he's the only one alive in the entire world that could fix it. Basically, like that's what people don't understand is that a lot of these like big IT systems are basically run by duct tape, bubble gum, and popsicle stick.
And I bet your friend wasn't getting paid the standard GS scale either to go back and do that.
No, definitely not. It was a Shanghai situation for sure. Yes, learn a skill that no one else knows or that no one else is readily available on, and then you'll be valuable for life.
A lot of people ask me if Splunk jobs are going to go away with the whole Cisco acquisition, and sure, there may be a reset on that too. But I'll keep in my back pocket that in 20, 30 years, I'm going to be making bank with Splunk skills because not that I don't get paid well now doing it, but we're talking that invaluable stage whenever I'm hitting my golden years.
Yeah, nice. We're at 8:05. We're roughly that. So we'll end this session here. So next session will be February 7th on a Saturday at, I think, noon Eastern or 11 o'clock my time. That will be Markeisha, Gladys, Paul, and then Nigel. Nick will probably have you back on, probably like in March or something, to do another session with that. Also, guys, we'll be having a lot more different sessions with different guest speakers on as well. So if you like the type of format, just let me know, and I'll keep recruiting different people to come on for us, or all the basically ask Jordan, so you can keep more.
she'll introduce you to anyone who needs to come on.
That's literally happy to let her know. No, couple of notes before we close out. The latest update for our Splunk app has came out. Steve was wonderful enough to do that this weekend. So I'll be releasing that as well in the next couple of weeks. Cyber Range is growing as well. If you want access towards it, the link is inside of the chat too for that. Or you can directly ask me or ask Paul or ask Nigel. We'll help you get set up for that. Otherwise, I'll talk towards you guys in a couple of weeks, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, the end stream. I can't end this yet.